Hello, my name is Kai, and today I'm going to be doing something I almost never do, which is speculate. I'm going to be talking about the recent transfer news regarding Hugo Ekitike, Alexander Isak, and Rodrygo. Now, because this is an analysis channel, I mainly want to focus on how they could potentially play together, and that being Isak and Rodrygo, because it's Isak or Ekitike. But before I get into it, it'd be great if you could like the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter. And remember, it's the last day to answer that community poll about content on other teams. Okay, so let's get right into it. Now, if we were to sign both Rodrygo and Isak, or were to sign both Rodrygo and Ekitike, I expect us to line up like this. Now, you might immediately see that I've no longer put Florian Wirtz on the left wing. And the reason for that is because if you sign Rodrygo, he's obviously playing left wing, and Florian Wirtz is the 10 with Sabo dropping out. You probably would have the same concerns I would, which is who exactly is doing the defending, how are we building up? You said before that it'd be difficult to play Wirtz in the 10. I think what happens is kind of similar to what we saw in the Preston game with Kostas Tsimikas, and would pretty much directly mirror the Tavernier-Barisic relationship that we saw at Rangers. So what do I mean by that? Well, I think in possession, you'd see something like Frimpong moving up either here or interchanging with Salah. These two positions are fluid. Rodrygo holding the width here. Florian Wirtz here, which is somewhat similar to what Luis Kumas was doing in the second half of the Preston game. And you'd have Ibu move over, and something like this is what you would be more likely to see. Now, this is still a 3-2-5. I don't think I was wrong in saying that that's how Liverpool want to build up, is in a 3-2-5. The difference here, of course, is instead of the 10 being in the pivot alongside the 8 with the 6 dropping back, you have the left back. Now, of course, this isn't Kerkez's best role, but if anyone watched Kerkez at AZ Alkmaar, we know that he's capable of doing these underlaps, and he's also capable of passing his way forward. He doesn't necessarily need to fly, I just think it's his best position. Now, the reason I've set it up like this and compromised a little bit of Kerkez's strengths, and we're also compromising McAllister a little bit as well, is because I want to maintain Florian Wirtz in this left half space, and otherwise he would have to be deep, which isn't his best position. And if you've watched him in training recently, especially in the recent inside training, he was occupying the left-hand side a lot more. So I would try to maintain that in the same way. Now, Alexander Isak, yes, sometimes he likes to be more on the left, and yes, that could end up being a problem. Now, there is a world where you can overload this side, don't get me wrong, and then Kerkez can underlap, because I was saying before that if you start overloading one side, what it does is potentially free up one of Salah or Frimpong to just have a direct switch of play, and because we have players like Milos Kerkez who could find him, or Alexis McAllister or Van Dijk, this could be a pretty fruitful lane of attack. And even if it's not Frimpong and Frimpong's inverted here, Mo Salah in a wide area with no one on him is also very dangerous. So I imagine that's also part of the strategy, that you could see us overload more on the left, which we're not really used to, because normally we play down the right because Mo is there. But now I think because Mo's getting older, we shouldn't be more reliant on him. And if anything, his production might increase, because instead of being double covered, which we normally saw Mo do, he could receive only one bit of coverage from the left back or none at all and be completely free on this side. And you might be like, why would a team do that? Well, it's because Rodrygo, Wirtz, and Isak, 3 players who are all world class in those positions, are here. So you can't really afford to double cover Mo at all anymore. Now, of course, the goal would eventually be for Kerkez to replicate with what Kostas did and end up in the final third. And in that case, we would kind of have something that looks like a 2-2-6, maybe even like a 2-1-7 if McAllister chose to join up, which could be problematic. But I see players like Mo sort of dropping in to conduct, or Wirtz dropping in at times if they need to. But I just think we should get them as high up the pitch as possible, because again, the reason that you have these players is because of their production in the final third. So you don't want to force them to have responsibilities in very deep progression. Ideally, your midfielders do that. Now, the biggest issue with the way that I expect us to play next season now is the profile at 6 is definitely not going to work now. If we do end up signing Rodrygo and Isak, or Rodrygo and Ekitike, you can't have Ryan here at all, because now the ball carrying is not that important for the 6. It needs to be a better passer now, because the profiles that you have here, here, and here, we can't have the risk of a ball carrier who's going to turn it over. It's just too risky. I would want a very safe, high volume, short passer like an Adam Wharton who can also go long. That's ideally the profile you want now. Because what it also lets you do is if Kirkes does find his way forward, someone like Adam Wharton can still drop in. And then if somebody chooses to leave this pivot at any given time, like if Frimpong decides to leave or Wirtz decides to drop in, there's at least someone who can cover this back position if we need to, like an Adam Wharton. So I definitely think it might be even more important to sign a better DM. It might be even more important to sign someone like Baliba, who's also left-footed and is somewhat more comfortable in playing as a center back too, because it's likely that we might need an out-and-out destroyer because of the level of attacking quality that we have here, which, yes, a lot of these players are good at pressing. Rodrygo can press, Wirtz can press, Isak can press, but without having someone like Sabo who can cover all of that ground in the team, it'll be problematic. Now, something some people might say is, why don't you just play Szoboszlai as the 8 instead of McAllister? The reason for that is because McAllister right now is the only player who can receive the ball from the center backs. Grav can't do it. Grav receives the ball by turning. That's not good enough. Or he'll receive it from the goalkeeper by kind of going really short. He can't do this direct progression stuff very well without turning, and that's a risk I don't really want. I want a player who can pick up the ball and immediately progress with a pass forward. Now, if you have Szoboszlai here and you keep Ryan in the team to do this, neither of them can do it reliably, so that's bad. So you need McAllister. If you have Wharton, he can do it, right? So let's say we do Wharton and Grav, or we could say Wharton and Sabo, for example. An issue you have here is I don't think Szoboszlai is as good of a connecting player as McAllister is, because McAllister is still our best second receiver as well, which means it's the person who can pick up the ball from the DM. So realistically, this would still have to be your pivot. Now, if you're against a team like Newcastle that's more physical, I could hear these arguments much better. But then I would even hear the argument that Sabo starts and we bench someone like Rodrygo in those types of games and still keep McAllister. Or play all of your bigs together and drop McAllister in those types of games if we really need to. It does give us options though. I think if we don't end up signing like someone like Adam Wharton, we could struggle in the early stage of build-up, or see McAllister drop here and fully get restricted, which is probably more likely, and have Gravenberch carry so that one of these players can conduct like Mo and rotate around. I do wonder though, the Rodrygo links, because some of the things that we were seeing in preseason with Dom overlapping Mo and going on the outside, we're not really going to see that from any of the other players, right? That isn't really Wirtz's game. Is the idea just for the right back to be even more active just in and around? Potentially. Maybe the right back isn't really meant to be that significant of a goal scorer and will just be more of like a flying overlapper and underlapper than like someone who just hangs forward. But I don't know. The Rodrygo links kind of threw a lot of things in for a loop, because I don't think you can really play Wirtz as a like orthodox 10 at a high level right now. I don't think he's ready just about yet to do this. I think he could do this role to a world-class level. I think Isak could be great here. Rodrygo is decent here. Of course, you want Rodrygo to be able to get centrally too, but ideally these two players interchange, much like how these two players interchange. And it's also possible that Isak and Wirtz interchange and you get scenarios like this, because Isak's comfortable out here too, or even things like this are possible. So we still get a lot of fluidity, and my video on how to play like PSG is going to come out tomorrow, and I've made some adjustments to take into account these possibilities, and I think it's less so that we're trying to copy PSG and more so that we're trying to have our own take on their play style of just being generally fluid, strong in midfield, good defensively, and having these great intricate patterns of build-up in both our third, the middle third, and in the final third. I think we're going to see something similar but not quite the same, actually. And maybe the Tsimikas thing just wasn't a coincidence. Maybe that is just what we want our left back to do, just sort of pass through the thirds to get all the way up by the time we're in the final third and then cross. Maybe that's the idea. Now, I think the Rodrygo deal is contingent on sales, right? We want to sell Luis Diaz. I think the Isak deal isn't. I think it's maybe just contingent on Darwin getting sold, but I think he will. I think Chiesa becomes our backup striker for this season. So if we're looking at depth now, let's start like logicking this out. We get Bradley as the backup to Frimpong, although I do think this will be more of a competition than I thought it would be. I think these guys will both interchange a lot as to who's starting. Now, if we have Rodrygo, I think Diaz is going to be gone, assuming that we get Rodrygo, so Gakpo is Rodrygo's backup. We have Joe Gomez in defense, and that's it for our defenders, so hopefully you would hope that we would get somebody like Mark Gahey to play in that position. We still have both Costas and Robertson. I think one of these guys is going to leave. I think it'd be better if it's Robertson in terms of wages. You then have Curtis here to back up your 6. Your other 6 is difficult. I would sign someone like Wharton at this point in the season. And then he could be backed up by the likes of like James McConnell and Lucas Stevenson in the pivot. Your backup for Florian Wirtz becomes Dom. Mo currently, in my vision, doesn't have a backup, which just means you can basically just say it's Rio, even though Mo will probably play. It's also possible that we still go out and sign a backup striker like Mikatadze, but this is what I would be looking for in terms of squad planning. Or it's entirely possible that you give up on something like this. Chiesa stays as your striker. You bring in someone like Dibbling to back up Salah, maybe a backup of Leone to these guys. And this is probably the squad that you should attempt to go with, meaning that in terms of signings, aside from Isak and Rodrygo, you'd still need to go for someone like Dibbling, someone like Wharton, and Gahey and Leone. So there'd still be a couple more signings to go, but this could be maybe something closer than what we would do. You could also replace the likes of Dibbling with like Doak and carry him for a season. And of course, we could still have Rio in the team like he is here. Something along these lines. You could replace Leone with another young center back. Maybe you don't sign Gahey. Maybe Ibu leaves. If Ibu leaves, you probably need someone like Zabarny. This is what we should start thinking about, is now we're in the end game where we can start filling in what we think the squad logic is going to be. And again, I don't normally speculate, but the Rodrygo and Isak links both look very, very concrete. So it's time to really start planning and thinking about how exactly we're going to go about doing this. In terms of the homegrown quota, let me bring Freddie Woodman in here too. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's pretty good. 7 players who would have to be registered for the homegrown quota. That's perfect. I guess Luca counts as well, I think. I think he's 21, so I think he could count as well for being homegrown. But yeah, this would be your squad. You're selling Elliott, Morton, Diaz, Nunez, Robertson. Oh, I forgot about Endo. He would be in this midfield group. Then ideally you would loan out one of these two of McConnell or Stevenson. That's just me speculating as to how we're going to have to build up, assuming that's our front 4 now. Also, what I wanted to mention is I haven't talked about him at all, which is Hugo Ekitike. The reason I'm not really discussing him in terms of build-up is he profiles almost identically to Alexander Isak, so he would virtually do the same things at a lower level. So there's no point in really discussing how he would fit compared to Isak. They'd be virtually the same. We just have to be a bit more patient. And if we had Rodrygo and Wirtz, wouldn't really matter if we had Ekitike or Isak. Isak is kind of just overkill, right? But the reason you would go for him is because we want to dominate everything for the next 3 years, because Salah and Verge pretty much just have 3 more years at like a really truly alien/world class level. So we're trying to maximize what we can with them and get the most amount of trophies possible until they start declining. So that's it for this video. I think it's a decently short one. Tomorrow, I'm going to have a video out about how to play with this PSG, which I've modified to talk about possibilities with Isak and Rodrygo. I'm going to talk about more build-up variations that we could potentially go for in that video. The day after, I'm going to post a video on Liverpool's academy and who we could potentially promote, talk more in depth about players like Rio, but also some of the lesser known people like Kareem Ahmed and Carol Figueroa. And then the day after that, I'm going to post a video about Liverpool's coaching structure. Aside from Van Bronckhorst, we're going to talk about Rob Page, who's the new coach of the under-21s after Barry Ludas left. We're going to talk about Xavi Valero, Colin Stewart, all sorts of coaches, and maybe even some of the administration. But yeah, if you liked the video, remember to comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching.